Hi art and garden lovers. Welcome to my house here in Marietta and my garden on this very hot late June day where we're hoping for no storms or anything, but I'm so glad you could join me, and I have a lot to show you and talk about. So as you can see, this is really a shade garden, at least a large part of my property is. I put big tall trees in. Well, I didn't put them in tall, but they grew a lot. I put a lot of them in 40 years ago, and they were just little sprouts. But the trees just make this magical at certain times of the day. It's just, I can't imagine a garden without them. And I think in some ways they really complement the height of the house. I think you need the tall trees, and the house is this tall. And so in some ways, though, they kind of limit you, because this is a big hydrangea garden, as you can see here. And unless I keep this one thinned, you don't get all the blue flowers. I'm disappointed they're not out in time for this tour, but usually this is the massive blue. And behind it is the neighbor's hydrangea, which everybody always talks about, which is, very old. It started as a small hydrangea and it's just spread. It's been there as long as I can remember. So I'll say a little bit more about them in a minute. But anyway, you get the idea that I'm a little limited in this area here, as to planting really colorful annuals. So I would like to say just a couple things about the house. First of all, I've been here well over 40 years, and we bought the house as apartments way back in the 70s, and it's been a labor of love. And between the garden and that, it's taken off a lot of time, but it's been worth it. And the house itself, we found out, is an Mylin urban designed house, and it was built in 1890. And the original owner was Charles Spangler, a well-known name here in Marietta. And it turns out, I found out after buying the house, that Charles Spangler's family is actually related to me by marriage. My uncle's wife that grew up in this house, and I didn't know it when I bought it. So it's very special to me, and it's been worth all the time. But anyway, the way it determines the garden is just, like I said, you really have to keep it, I really feel, in proportion, the trees and, nice big mature plantings. My neighbor is, thank heavens, very preservation-minded, and that house over there was owned by or built by Bar Spangler, the father of Charles Spangler, a very, very well-known name in Marietta and Lancaster County history, quite the businessman. And we're so grateful that the house and the garden is kept up so beautifully. So I get to, like I said, enjoy these hydrangeas and the surroundings that go beyond my house. And that's another big benefit of being here, just having one continuous garden. About this restoration, as I said, I started this way back, mid-70s. I got a job at Donegal High School teaching art, and I was there for about 11 or 12 years before I went to Penn State Harrisburg and taught art and art history and art education for 25 years, and also did galleries. And during that time, I had limited time for the garden, so I tried to make it a priority, of course, in the summer. But anyway, the process here was a long one. So I'd like to show you a drawing I think I did. It must have been around 1980 or so, of me sitting up in that very balcony. I just recovered this. It's not in good shape, so you can take a look at that. So, as I probably already mentioned, this garden has changed somewhat over the years, as most gardens do. Things just grow in ways you can't imagine. The cutleaf maple here was just a little guy when I planted it, and I used to have it surrounded by hydrangeas, but now, you know, it's pretty much covering a lot of the hydrangeas, so I'm going to have to take care of that next season. The little area right in here used to be grass, and then it became just shrubs and actually not so nice plantings. Kind of got out of control. So just recently, a couple weeks ago, I had this put in, just sort of mulched it and went with the ground cover that was starting to encroach onto the lawn anyway, and reused some stepping stones that I already had. This is one of my favorite views looking back to the shed. I don't know if you can see that right here, but I kind of like the idea of this. I don't leave anything go. I like the idea of keeping this tree as long as I can. This is a black pine that's been here forever too, and so I had it cabled, and I just like looking through it to the structure beyond, which was an old chicken coop when we bought the house, and it didn't even have any walls at that point, but it's become kind of a garden focus. So anyway, that's been my latest little project right here, and I'll show you another one, you know, very soon. In the back of this, you'll see seated, you'll see this statue. I just wanted to give a nod to a very dear friend of mine who passed away in 2013. This was her statue, and it was Emily Snyder. Many of you probably remember her. She was a good friend, fellow Mariettian, gardener, artist, and at one point she had a garden that was totally filled with statuary and all kinds of interesting odds and ends. And I did a series of artwork based on that, which you'll see, and you'll see some examples of it, and they're charcoal works. And there was kind of something mysterious about her garden, so I really liked the charcoal. And this little guy here was in that series. So Emily, I miss her every day. I bring her up partly because of some of the pottery that's around here. You know, some of the plantings were actually from her garden. We shared a lot. And in fact, I'll mention this, since this is a Demuth tour, she had a retrospective at the Lancaster Museum back in 2013, and I was a co-curator of that exhibit, and so, you know, there's a strong connection there too, so that's why I wanted to mention her. So yeah, you'll see a couple of the images that I did in her garden at that time, or a little bit before that time, before she passed on. So this area right here is a little patio area that's also a recent addition. There was just a little path here, which I had some issues with, and grass didn't grow, so I had the stones installed and had to, you know, do a little adjustment of the surrounding plants, although some of them are fairly old. Everybody asked me about this big tall guy back here, and that's a snake root, and I had no idea it was going to get that big when I put it there, but it puts on quite a show every year, including the tassels there at the top, which just really move with the wind. I love it. And of course I have rue here in the front. I don't know if you can see it, but back here is a bear's paw, which a lot of people aren't familiar with, and that'll send up a really nice flower later in the summer. So then usually I'll just fill in here and there with annuals, and you can see some more hosta here. I don't know how many hostas I have here on this property, but there's a lot. These 4 watercolors are very recent. I just completed them, so they're perfect for this tour, since they're all garden subjects, which I don't always do. I don't frequently do watercolors of flowers, but one of the reasons I did these was Marietta's having a garden tour, and we, a group of artists, Marietta Art Alive, are doing a special show at the garden tour, and we're supposed to be featuring florals. So I did them for that, and it fits in really nice with this little tour as well. The watercolors show, I think, probably more than a lot of my work, my influence, the influence that Charles Demuth has had on my work. I think his architectural studies probably overall have had more influence, but when you look at his florals and his still lifes, there's something I think that speaks to me there, and that I hope you can see a little bit of in these, possibly maybe more this one than any others. Demuth has always been an interest of mine, and in fact back in the, I guess it was in the early 80s, I did a master's thesis on Charles Demuth and his friend and poet William Carlos Williams. And the name of that thesis was A Shared Aesthetic. And it really related to those kind of common ideas about what art and poetry can do or should do. And in this case of the watercolors, you know, it had to do with Demuth, you know, getting to the essence of things, getting to, you know, just a sharp, crisp essence of things, not a lot of background narrative, just, you know, zeroing in on the thing itself, which Williams liked to talk about a lot, the thing itself. And I'll say a few more things about that in just one second. I should say that in addition to those 4 watercolors you just saw of nice, beautiful, live flowers, I've also done flowers that aren't so live and beautiful. I did a series of roses, of dead roses, and you'll be seeing them. They're in various states of decay, and you know, that's a little bit of a sadness there in regard to what's happening to our earth, and I guess there's a little bit of symbolism in those dying roses. I think I also explored that topic in another way in a whole series that I did that had to do with overdevelopment in Lancaster County, and it had to do with just, you could see the ominous sort of encroachment of what was going to be a big development in what was otherwise farm area. And that's a big series of charcoal drawings that has been shown all over the place, including up at Penn State at University Park. But that whole series now resides at the Lancaster Arts Hotel. It's in the master suite. That's a permanent installation there, and that, you know, kind of alludes to what's around the corner. Again, it's not outright pictures of development, but I tried to sort of suggest, you know, things to come in the way I composed these pieces. So this gives you sort of an overview of what the room looks like and an overview of those works. Williams liked to talk a lot about the stark dignity of entrance, which he explored that idea in his Spring and All series of poems. And I think as an obstetrician, that's apropos that that theme can be read in, you know, many different levels. He loved March, and he loved how things emerge out of the ground, and he noted that in a lot of his poems. But I'm sure he was also influenced by his work as, you know, delivering babies. So I just love that quote. I myself love the stark emergence of things in the spring. This garden has so many shoots that just start to emerge that have interesting, wonderful shapes to them. And as do, you know, not just this garden, but other things that I see in the spring. I love that time period. It just shows the promise of summer and, you know, my favorite time. So I guess I share that love with Williams. In a few years ago, I had a solo show down at the Center for, it was Pennsylvania Arts Experience area, a gallery that was on Prince Street in Lancaster. And the name of that show was, in fact, Spring and All. And in it, I captured some of the idea of this emergence that, you know, I just referred to. So you can see some of the images that were in that show, and how some of them actually had got their start right here in this garden before it all went like that. And I will say also that this used to be much more colorful. There were a lot more annuals in here, but as I said, over the years, so much shade has sort of overtaken the area that I pretty much have to stick to shade-loving. Most of them are perennials. These are variegated Solomon seal that I need a thin. They're growing totally out of control. And I've got a blue angel hosta back there that's kind of taken over the whole garden. But I try to add some color here with some, with some pots, some potted annuals. So you'll see that too. Now we've entered my sun area, the one place that I can really play with annuals and sun-loving flowers, and I have a little bit more color out here. This patio area has changed, like everything else here, a lot over the years. The fence that you see here, I designed and cut out parts of it way back when, and it's been here for quite some time. Other parts of it have been batted by my husband. Did some renovations on part of the area to my left. And the greenhouse, I call it a greenhouse, it's just sort of like a sunroom, just added maybe about 10 years ago. And that is basically, it was designed for some place for me to take all of my pots in the winter instead of lugging them up to the third floor of the house. And so it's quite the oasis. In December you should see it in there. It's like a, it's like a Rousseau. Anyway, maybe we can get a picture of that to show you. But in the summer, we basically live out here in the evenings. I just absolutely love it. And I've done, journaling on just keeping record of not only what's back here. Some of these pages contain illustrations, some of them don't. But I kind of keep track of what I plant and how things change over the years. So that's kind of a part of my art too, the journal. I know this is probably not going to photograph too well, but you can see that I've done this for some time. Can't find the pages that have the color. But a lot of these pieces, refer to various states of this space back here. And again, that's changed a lot over the years. One thing that really does fascinate me about this beyond, the fact that I can do color and annuals is at night it just is magical. We have some lighting here that casts really interesting shadows, and I really enjoy that and really am fascinated and intrigued by it, especially when insects run in front of a shadow or my cat's out here playing with that insect. It's mysterious. It's magical. So I did a series of drawings, not of all this beautiful color, but of the patio at night, and they're all in charcoal. And you'll see some of those images as well. And there I'm just trying to capture the mystery and the intrigue of a night setting when all is quiet back here and you don't know what's right around the corner. So I hope you enjoy looking at those. This, I guess I already mentioned this shed here. You saw the front of it. This goes back the beginning of when the house was built. I have an old circa 1890s photograph that shows this curve here, and I picked that curve up also in the garage overhang that I don't know if you're going to see in this presentation or not. But anyway, yeah, long story here, many changes over the years, but I just absolutely love it back here. And I hope you enjoyed what I had to say about this about this garden, and I welcome you to check my website. And it's a little outdated. I have to bring it up to date, but it gives you, you know, an idea of some of the other things that I do besides garden-related themes. So do that, and I hope you've enjoyed this.